Welcome to Life Signal Podcast, the space where we slow down, tune in, and talk honestly about what it means to be human in today's world. I'm Denver, and I'm here to help ground the conversation, to ask the hard questions, challenge assumptions, and bring clarity when things feel confusing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily. I'm really glad you're here. Life Signal Podcast is about connection to yourself, to others, and to the parts of life we don't always talk about out loud. My role here is to hold space for the emotional side of these conversations because so many of us are carrying things quietly.
And I'm Andi. I love exploring the why behind what we feel and how we think. On Life Signal Podcast, I help break things down, patterns, mindsets, and the realities of modern life so we can understand ourselves a little better and maybe see things from a new perspective.
Each episode of Life Signal Podcast is a conversation, not a lecture, not a performance, just real talk about life, identity, relationships, purpose, and everything in between.
If you've ever felt overwhelmed, disconnected, or unsure where you fit in, you're not alone here.
This podcast exists to remind you that your thoughts, your questions, and your experiences are valid.
So wherever you're listening from, take a breath, settle in.
And welcome to Life Signal Podcast. Today, we're diving into something I think resonates with almost everyone, but we rarely articulate it out loud. Those phases of life that just hit you out of nowhere, the ones no one warned us about.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you're sailing along, maybe you've planned out your next few years, and then bam, you're in this entirely new emotional or mental landscape and you think, wait, was there a memo I missed? Did everyone else get a guidebook to this specific part?
Exactly. And it's not just big life events like having kids or getting married. Sometimes it's these more subtle internal shifts, the feeling of disillusionment after achieving a long-held goal, or suddenly questioning everything you thought you wanted in your late 20s, early 30s. Why do we feel so unprepared for these?
I think part of it is that our society really emphasizes certain milestones. Graduate college, get a job, get married, buy a house. And once you check those boxes, or even if you don't, there's this unspoken expectation that you should just know what you're doing. But life keeps evolving, and the internal landscape definitely doesn't follow a neat checklist.
Label. And when those internal landscapes shift, it can feel so disorienting. I remember hitting my early 30s and suddenly feeling this immense pressure, not from external sources, but from myself. Like, is this it? Is this what I worked for? Why am I not happier or more fulfilled? It was a phase of deep questioning, almost an existential ache that I truly wasn't ready for.
That's a perfect example, Andi. It's the gap between expectation and reality. We're fed narratives, both consciously and unconsciously, about what life should look like at certain ages. And when our personal experience deviates, even slightly, it creates this internal friction. The why behind it often comes down to a lack of open, honest dialogue about these very normal, yet uncomfortable, transitions.
It's almost like we're told about puberty and menopause, the physical transitions, but not the deep psychological ones that are just as impactful. Like postgraduate blues, you spend years working towards this degree, then you get it, and it's not the golden ticket you imagined. Or the shift in friendships in your late 20s when everyone's lives start diverging.
Oh, the friendship one is huge. Suddenly, you're not all in the same city or on the same life path, and maintaining those connections takes so much more intentional effort, and sometimes, honestly, they just naturally fade. It's a quiet grief, I think, that you don't really talk about much, you just feel it.
And the silence around it makes it harder. If everyone's quietly struggling with evolving friendships or post-achievement melancholy, but no one's voicing it, then you assume it's just you, that you're doing something wrong. That's the detrimental part of not being warned. It leads to immense self-blame.
Right, the isolation factor is powerful. I remember thinking I should be thriving right now after I'd landed what I thought was my dream job. But I felt empty. Like, is this it? Is this all there is? And it was confusing because on paper, everything looked great. I felt guilty for not feeling grateful enough, which just compounded the problem.
That's such a common experience, Lily. The shoulds are so heavy. We should be happy, should be settled, should feel content. But sometimes, when you've achieved what you thought you wanted, you realize the picture you had in your head doesn't match the reality, and that can be really jarring.
And it brings up the question of where these shoulds come from. Are they societal? Are they from our parents? From media? Often, it's a mix. We absorb these ideas of linear progression and constant upward trajectory, but life isn't a straight line. It's a messy, winding path with detours and U-turns. But no one really normalizes that.
I think part of it too is that people who have gone through these phases often romanticize them in retrospect, or forget the messy bits. They'll say, "Oh, your 20s are the best," but gloss over the intense anxiety, the financial struggles, the constant feeling of imposter syndrome. So the warning often gets sugar-coated or omitted entirely.
That's a really good point. There's a selective memory at play, or maybe it's an effort to shield younger generations from the same pain, but in doing so, they're actually making them feel more alone when they inevitably hit those bumps. It's a well-intentioned but ultimately unhelpful omission.
And it feeds into this idea that vulnerability is weakness. If someone tells you, "My 20s were a struggle," that's seen as less appealing than, "My 20s were a whirlwind of adventure." We're conditioned to present curated versions of our lives, which extends to how we talk about past phases.
So if we were to give a warning for one of these phases, what would it be? For me, it would be the mid-career wanderlust phase. You've been in your field for 10, 15 years, you're good at what you do, but suddenly you're asking, is this it for the next 20 years? That feeling can be incredibly unsettling.
Oh, that's so relatable, Lily. For me, it's that shift in perception around your body as you age. It's not just about wrinkles, it's a deeper understanding that your physical self is changing, and the relationship you have with it has to evolve too. It's a phase of renegotiation, often accompanied by a sense of loss for your younger self, but also potential for new acceptance.
That's beautifully put, Andy. I think for me, it's the phase where you realize your parents aren't immortal superheroes anymore. They become just people, and you start to see them with their own vulnerabilities, their own pasts, their own struggles. And suddenly, you're not just a child anymore, you're also a caretaker, a confidant, and it's a massive shift in dynamic that no one truly prepares you for.
Wow, Denver, that one hits home. It's like the role reversal that slowly creeps up on you. One day you're relying on them, the next, you're the one offering advice or support in a way you never imagined. And it's bittersweet, isn't it? A sign of growth, but also a reminder of time passing.
Absolutely bittersweet. And with that, there's often a reckoning with your own mortality, or just the passage of time in general. It forces you to confront your own timeline in a very visceral way, which can be scary but also incredibly clarifying if you allow it to be.
Precisely. And that's where the why comes in again. Why don't we talk about this more? Because it's uncomfortable. It reminds us of things we'd rather not think about, but ignoring these phases doesn't make them disappear. It just makes them harder to navigate individually.
So how can we better prepare ourselves, or at least normalize these transitions for ourselves and for those coming up behind us? I think it starts with exactly what we're talking about it. Openly, acknowledging that it's okay to feel disoriented.
Yes, creating spaces like this, where people can hear that their experience isn't unique, that they're not alone in feeling confused or lost. It's about building a collective vocabulary for these unspoken phases. If we can name it, we can begin to process it and maybe even find some grace in it.
And challenging the linear narrative. We need to internalize that life isn't a race to some fixed finish line where everything falls into place. It's a continuous journey of evolution. Embracing that fluidity, even when it feels uncomfortable, is key, because the end goal is constantly shifting.
That's a really important reframe, Denver. The idea that there isn't a finish line takes so much pressure off. It allows for reinvention, for pivots, for simply existing in a state of not knowing without feeling like a failure.
And it allows for more self-compassion. When you're in one of these uncharted phases, it can be really easy to be hard on yourself, to tell yourself you should be stronger or smarter or have it together. But if we recognize it as a universal human experience, it helps soften that inner critic.
I think also seeking out stories. Instead of looking for a definitive warning, look for narratives of resilience, of adaptation. Read memoirs, listen to podcasts like this one, engage with people who are willing to share their messy bits. That kind of informal education can be far more valuable than any formal warning ever could be.
I love that, seeking out the real stories, because the truth is, everyone's navigating their own uncharted territories. We just often do it in silence. Maybe the biggest warning we can give is, expect the unexpected, and be gentle with yourself when it comes.
Yes, Evie, be gentle with yourself, absolutely. And reach out, find your people, the ones you can truly be honest with about what you're going through, because that connection is what ultimately helps us move through these difficult yet transformative phases.
And remember, these phases, while challenging, are also opportunities for immense growth and self-discovery. They force us to reevaluate, to shed old skins, and to emerge a little bit wiser, a little bit more ourselves. So, while no one warns us, perhaps that's where the real adventure lies.
That's a beautiful thought to end on, Denver. The adventure in the unknown. Thank you both for this incredibly grounding and empathetic conversation today. It really highlights the importance of honesty in our shared human experience.
Thank you, Denver and Lily. It's always a privilege to explore these deeper parts of life with you both and with everyone listening. Remember, you're never truly alone in your journey.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. And as always, keep asking the why, keep seeking new perspectives, and keep being brave enough to sit with the phases that no one quite prepared you for. We'll catch you next time on Life Signal Podcast.